It's another episode on Timeline. I am your host, Sharon Ajay, and of course, I have with me in the studio, as always,
Hannah Mokafe Dennis. It's always a pleasure being right here on the set of Timeline with you.
Of course. Well, today we'll be treating a topic that some persons might feel like it's a norm, but it has a negative effect on people, and that is on-screen violence. Now we have a guest in the studio to help us dive deep into this conversation. I'll be unveiling my guest, and our conversation will continue in full after this break. Stay with us. We have a guest in the house, and our guest is a wellness counselor, Ifeanyi Adinnu. It's good to have you in the studio with us today.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here.
Yeah. Good to have you.
Thank you very much.
Just like I said, on-screen violence, some people feel it's a norm, but it has a negative effect. And as it stands now, it's something that is a widespread globally, and it's now so accessible and available, based on demands. Worst of all, the internet has made it so accessible, especially to young children. And that, I suppose, as a serious challenge. The United Nations, in a report, stated that 1 of 3 internet users are actually under the age of 18. So you could tell that when all of this is being put out, the number of people that are taking it in, the number of persons that are, digesting this content are teenagers and, of course, young children. And that's why we're having this conversation today to talk about the risk of on-screen violence and how we can, mitigate this issue to, bring it to a point whereby the guidance and people, even adults, get to understand the effects of on-screen violence. Right, Omokafe?
Definitely, Sharon. One thing I think we have to come to an understanding of is that violence exists everywhere. Violence is not something that's just offline right now, but it now exists on our screens, on the small tablets that we hold, on our computer screens, on our laptop screens, everywhere. Little children, adults are constantly with their gadgets. Some people try to give their children gadgets, for them to calm them down, or some people just use it to do their work. But all in all, they're always exposed to something. And this is the reason why we are here today. We're trying to find solutions to see how we can move away from just experiencing violence on screen to seeing how we can be able to regulate it. And even if possible, take it away totally.
Rightly said, Omokafe. Now let's turn to, of course, our professional here in the house. Now, Ifeanyi, I'd like you to tell us, how does on-screen violence affect children and teenagers?
Okay, thank you very much for having me here. On-screen violence is actually, if you want to have a definition for it, it's the depiction of the mutilation of a character on a screen or in a video format. It can be on movies, social media, games, all that. And it has become a problem. As far as mass media had been in existence, on-screen violence had always been an issue. I think in 1906, one of the first movies to come out, motion picture to come out, that was actually censored because of on-screen violence was a movie that came out in 1906. So if you look back at it, from 1906 to present day, you could see that it's been an issue, and it's going to be an issue because every day new forms of screen are coming out and people are being exposed to this. So it's one of the biggest problems it's having on children. One of the biggest people who suffer from this are children because, number one, children are still developing. And one of the things they do is to learn from the environment, see what others are doing and pick from that and emulate that and try to do that. And because of that nature, because of that characteristics that is prone to them alone, it exposes them to, when you expose them to long-term on-screen violence, it becomes a problem because they start picking those things and trying to replicate it. In one of the psychologists, the founder of, in psychology, they call them a school. It was the School of Social Learning. He did an experiment where they had 2 groups of children. One group had a doll and an adult came and played with the doll gently. The other groups had the same doll, but the adults came and played with it roughly. At the end of the day, they left the children alone. And funny enough, the group of children who saw an adult come and play with the doll roughly, not only emulated that, they also brought out new ideas on how to play rough with the doll, which shows that it's because of that unique way of them learning. It's very dangerous. It's a very dangerous trend, exposing them to this violence, which no matter what you do as a parent or a guardian or a teacher, they're one way or another, through one way or another, they're exposed to this. Either through, if they don't see it on social media networks, they don't see it on movies, on video games. Video games nowadays are becoming really, really violent, and they are exposed to that, and they will want to emulate that and bring it to the real world.
So based off the example that you gave of two children being divided and everything like that, there's a particular report by UNESCO that shows that some children might not necessarily, the effect of this violence might not necessarily might not be on them because of personality traits, the home, or the environment which they grew up in. So it doesn't matter if they were, placed in the same room. Do you think that that is very variable even in today's world? Are children more sensitive, or if they are constantly exposed to this, are they more sensitive than other children?
Okay, one of the biggest issues with on-screen violence or screen generally is the continuous exposure. Because no matter how tough a child's personality, let me put it in that quote, or how the environment is, as long as you continually expose that child to the screen and the child has access to this, it becomes an issue. And that is one of the biggest, according to various research, that is one of the problems it has, because the more you keep exposing an individual to violence on screen, the more the person's empathy, which is one of the biggest disadvantage of on-screen violence, is that it tends to reduce people's level of empathy without them even realizing that is what is happening to them.
Interesting. Just like you said, during the child's developmental stage, the child cannot particularly, be able to understand if this is fantasy or reality. Yeah. Also, what they see in their surroundings, what their friends do, and it's just because that is the stage that they are. So when they begin to watch things like that also, they can't point out that, oh, this is fantasy. This was what somebody just put together to make as a film. Yeah. They begin to think that, oh, this might be reality, but reality, of course, in a small box or, in the film like that. Now, tell us, what are some signs? Because people can misunderstand things like this. You could have a very energetic child jumping all around, and they'll say, okay, on the show, we watch on the show timeline, they said, oh, when a child is doing this or that, you can just automatically just say the child has been watching on-screen violence. And of course, that's not true, right? So I'd like you to list out some signs that you could tell that this child has been exposed to on-screen violence and has now taken that content in and is now bringing it out, maybe through actions or words or whatsoever.
Let me go into it generally. When a child is being exposed to screens, especially to videos and all those, and you want to know that the child you want to see signs of it, one of the signs is it's almost becoming an addiction. And one of the things that the child can't be pulled away from that screen. If you notice that your child is standing in front of screens for too long and pulling the child away from that screen for about 10, 20 minutes, and the child is not comfortable just being away from screen for that 10, 20 minutes gap without them start fidgeting. When a child starts becoming addicted to screen, let's just go there finally, you can't pull the child away. One, you see that the child start fidgeting because they have to see some screen in motion to stimulate their brain. Number two is their behavior. The behavior of the child starts changing. If you have a child that normally, the child, when he's playing, plays very calmly, very tenderly, but all of a sudden the child displaying these destructive tendencies, maybe a male child, you see him start breaking things in the house. You should start being cautious if it's exceeding normal, because there are normal ranges of behavior. If it's a child just normally hits something and break the thing, it's a normal reaction behavior. But when you see a child intentionally trying to destroy things in the house, or you see a child carry a stick or something and say, this is my knife, I want to kill this thing. You should start paying attention to that. It might not be that the child is displaying that, he's just trying to recreate what he has seen. Let me give an example. When I was growing up, we had there's some play, we call it actor and bows. Basically, we're trying to create our own movies of the good guys and the bad guys, and none of us ever wanted to be the bad guy. All of us wanted to be the good guy because the good guy kills the bad guy. Like when you see that behavior start showing itself over and over again, and the child's destructive tendency is increasing and not reducing, I think that should be a source of concern to a parent or a guardian or any adults attached to a child.
Yeah. So, this answer you gave right now reminds me of a UNICEF report that says that constant exposure of children to, media violence helps them, not help per se, but reduces the development of their social
skills,
yes, their social behavior, and it constantly also makes them aggressive to their fellow children. And even if children are constantly exposed to screen, then it has to be things that enables them positively, that they grow up to become better individuals of a society, because technology is supposed to be for our development and not for underdevelopment or whatever it is that it might be. So away from that, let's look at how parents can help reduce this particular problem. There's something I read, and it said that parents have to be constantly taught something called media literacy.
Yeah.
Yes. So media literacy education. So is it possible that when parents are taught or are embedded in media literacy education, this sort of effects for media violence reduces?
Yeah. For parents, one of the things I would advise for a parent is what we call co-viewing. That is a parent being watching the same program the child is watching for two reasons. One, to censor what the child is saying, and two, to help the child process what he's saying. Like maybe a parent, you are watching, let me use Lion King, for example. When Mufasa died, and what was the name of the... Simba, thank you. And Simba ran away. It's a parent being there with the child can help the child process what the child is saying, because I've been around children who watch that movie for the first time, and at that point in time, they always end up crying. So a parent can be there, co-viewing it with the child at that point in time, pausing the movie and discussing the movie except to that point with the child. Okay, what do you think is going on? How are you feeling? This, and just helping them process that idea of death with them. On that thing, as you stated, media literacy, which any parent who is worried about the well-being of their child has to be in this present age. You have to be medially literate. Medially literate means paying attention to the things that the content your children are exposed to. Not just being educated on that, but also being able to censor what they are exposed to. For example, if there is a home Wi-Fi network, you can put a censorship on it so that certain content are not directed to your children. And even when it's mistakenly, because the way social media network works now, consciously, unconsciously, they can be exposed to it. Even when they're exposed to it, you are able to catch it quickly and help them understand what is going on in that context. Because even in the process, for example, in the process of reporting the news has a way of showing this kind of things, even though they try as much as possible to censor some of the things that are being shown on screen. But at least you are there as a parent or a guardian, saying it to the child and helping the child understand the context of what is going on, so that even if they are exposed to it, the full effect of it is not, the burden is not put on them, but they're able to discuss it with you and able to come back later to process the feeling of what they saw, how it's affecting them, and what they can do about that.
Interesting. This is quite a very educative conversation we are having, but we have to go on a break. We'll be going on a break right now, and when we return, Omo Cafe will take us through social commentary. Stay with us.
Everybody has a stake in making the world a better place with love and compassion. As we thrive daily, we continue to strive to face the many challenges that faces our Earth, because together We all matter. On one side, we are exploring the captivating stories, the trends, the glamour, while on the other hand, we're looking at the love, the care, and compassion from our champions. In our star's quiet cove lies the burning passion for humanity, which is seldom known and unsung to the world. Join me on Famed to look at the flip side of your favorite beyond the regular.
Welcome back. This is Timeline. Omo Cafe, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Sharon. So I'm definitely very excited and very interested in this particular topic because there are children everywhere. There are children in my house, there are children in Sharon's house, and probably there's a child in our guest house right now. And constantly we get to see violence in the contents that we get to consume, whether it be on social media or it be on our TVs. And these days, we have a lot of content to consume on YouTube, on Netflix, Amazon Prime, all of that. And it means that sometimes we might not necessarily be present when these kids are watching these movies or watching this series, and we do not know what they're exposed to. But of course, let's go look at what parents, children, teenagers, and every other person is saying online as regards fighting media violence. This is from the Kuka Center, and they said online violence is rising, including harassment, threats, doxing, and non-consensual image sharing. Digital abuse is real abuse. So this is coming from the fact that media violence is not necessarily movies or cartoons, but then it can also be images, it can also be doxing, it can also lead to people harassing you while you are, on the media space and everything, and all of that consists of media violence. What's your thought?
Well, they are very correct because one of the things I think I failed to mention is online violence is not just about the physical violence. There's verbal, there's psychological, and all those ones are the kids are exposed to this. So you can say something doesn't have physical violence, but there are verbal violence in there, like hate speech and all those, and they are being exposed to that. So the more they are exposed to that, the more they think a child doesn't know the difference between what is right and wrong. They are looking up to parents and guidance to tell them what is right and wrong. So when, for example, you are using a bad language or using generalization or hate speech to address a particular tribe or section of people, and they hear that from you, they think it's correct, and they can go back and use that. So the assessment from them is actually 100% correct.
Okay. Let's hear from Sharon before we move to the next one.
Well, basically, just like he says, the assessment is totally correct. And this already depicts what is happening online. This depicts the, what online violence is basically all about. Yeah.
Okay, let's move to the next one. We have a tweet from Da Vinci. It says, one of the most peculiar features of humans is desensitization. It is consistently fascinating what people can get accustomed to after even brief exposure. This reminds me of, I think, a term in psychology, familiarity principle. Does that define this?
Yeah. This is actually one of the biggest issue with on-screen violence because it desensitizes, which is one of the things as wellness counselors, psychologists, clinical psychologists, psychiatrists are all worried about. Because the more you expose people to violence online, the more they become desensitized to it in the real world, which even when they see it being physical violence, for example, being carried out on someone, things that should evoke emotional reactions from people on a normal day, you see that people will just move on as if nothing happened, which is actually a big problem. So desensitization is a very big concern to we as counselors, wellness counselors, psychologists, because human beings have that tendency to become very desensitized about things that should evoke emotional reaction from them. So the assessment is actually correct.
By the way, from social media, because that's all we have for today, is it possible that content from the media that is violent can still teach, positive things to those children or teenagers or even adults?
It's possible. I think one of the things which a lot of media organizations are doing now is, especially to their reporters, is what we call trauma-informed reporting. So they are exposing them to this to be able to, when you are reporting like in news, for example, on something violent that has happened, you are cautious of reporting it in a way that, number one, it doesn't escalate the situation, one, and it doesn't traumatize people who are watching it, because a lot of people, some people now presently who are suffering from serious psychological issues like PTSD, didn't get it. The normal route of getting those things is from being repeatedly exposed to online violence, and they become exposed to that, and they end up dealing with traumatic responses because they were exposed to this. So I think a lot of media houses now are including that to their media training, to report trauma in a safe way that people are aware that, okay, this is going on. But at the same time, they are not escalating it, and they are not like singing it so that other people can continue it. And also parents too. It still falls back to the parents. It's
Definitely.
your table. You have to be cautious of what your children are being exposed to, and to also, that's why I stated co-viewing. When your child is watching a movie or something, you are there with the child so that you are seeing it, and you same time helping the child process exactly what is going on. They should understand the reason why it is going on, and giving them a good emotional base so that they can handle those things.
Interesting. And one of the sad thing about some online violence video is that they do not even tell you about the aftermath. You just see a storyline that portrays, oh, somebody killed somebody's dog. I'm not trying to shade, but somebody killed somebody's dog and the person is so angry, so he carries gun and like wipe out the family and all of that. And it just basically depicts the fact that when you hurt me, I hurt you 10 times more.
10 times back.
Right? A shooting happened. They call it the Sandy Hook Elementary shooting. It happened in December 2012, where the shooter killed 26 people, and 20 of those people the shooter killed were children. And, when the investigation went on, they traced it back to the fact that this person watched very violent video games. To tell you that definitely that was like the originator of the practice that this person just pulled out there. And that's really sad. Now that leads me to the question, how can culture and the society influence violent practices?
Okay. As we are speaking now, it took me to the Rwandan genocide in 1994. Because one of the things that escalated the violence to the level where it got and to its brutality was the radio stations that were broadcasting the locations of people. It's traumatizing to read, but it shows I think at the end of the day, one of the things people learned from that was that the power of mass media, in as much as we think these things that we see online, they don't matter. It matters more than, government have been brought down because of what people posted online. If you want to just go back and read about the Arab Spring. It was something that someone posted on social media that brought down several governments within the Middle East and North Africa. Which, at the end of the day, that's why I stated that we have to come back to it. It's the most basic thing. That's why they say family is the base unit of a social engagement. Among families should be very careful of what they expose their children to. The larger culture should also pay attention to what these children are being exposed to, because at the end of the day, the children are the ones that are going to come to inherit this culture. So you have to keep something better for them so that when they come, I think one of the things parents and culture should do should be educating these children on violence, as you stated, happens every day. But if children are being exposed to the positive side of life and teaching them how to better handle conflict within one another, it goes a long way in curtailing the effect of all these things they are being exposed to online.
So is it better that we focus more on media literacy education? That is, you constantly teach parents to ensure that whatever it is they expose their children to, they have screened it already, they have watched it, they have certified it honest enough, good enough for their children to be able to watch? Or should we totally erase screen time from children and teenagers and ensure that they get to maybe 16 or 17 before they are exposed to screens?
It's, if you don't expose to, this is my belief. The internet is a very good place to learn a lot of things. There are very positive things you can learn from the internet. Why, for one, I've learned there are a lot of things I know now. It's because of the internet, being exposed to it. And in the era we live in, keeping a child out of the internet is like almost taking the child 10 years behind, because by the time the child tries to catch up with his or her contemporaries, it's going to be very difficult. I don't think cutting them away from the internet or screen is the best thing, but monitoring what they look at, monitoring the amount of time they spend on the screen is actually the best situation. For example, I live with my elder sister and I have my nephew and my niece, and for a long time, I always thought I could do anything I wanted, but it was recently I found out that because I know they have a nephew and a niece in the house, it's almost like putting restraints on me on the things I say, the things I expose them to. I think recently we had an argument with my nephew about a movie he wanted to watch, and I was like, I'm not downloading this movie for you. And it almost became a fight that we had to go and report to. He reported me to his elder sister, my sister, his mom. And when his mom asked me, I was like, I can't download this movie for him because of the level of violence. And when I showed his mom was like, no, we are not watching this. It's just to curtail it, because at the end of the day, if you don't expose them to screens in the house, they are going to go to schools and they have friends who have access to screens, and they are going to see what you are trying to keep them away from. So my own is there should be a balance. They should have screen time, but they should have a very strict time of when they're exposed to screens and the things they're exposed to. I think recently what I even do now is to take them to some of the cartoons I watched when I was growing up, because I found out that those ones were even more healthy than some of the ones they are seeing now. And when they watch it, they are always like, hi, this cartoon was even more better than what they are seeing now. I think there should be a balance. What they watch should be censored. They shouldn't be on screen for a long period of time, because at the end of the day, being on screen actually start making you lose some of your social skills you have as humans. So they should be guarded on that, and also exposing them to the real world, what the real world look like. Having interaction with physical people will also go a long way.
Thank you so much. Like I stated, this has been such an educative, and now permit me to say, very insightful conversation that we've had today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you once again. It was good having you on the show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Well, that's where we draw the line on timeline. Remember, be careful of what content you take in. And as guardian, please guide properly, because the internet is now accessible to all. So do your guidance properly. And to young adults out there, be careful of the content you take in. I remain your host, still in that spirit, Sharon Ajay, and of course,
and as always, my name is Hannah Omokafedini. It's always a pleasure hosting with Sharon. Remember that there's a difference between reality and fantasy. There's a difference between what you see on screen and also what you get to experience as a person. Have a wonderful time.
Until next time, see you again.